Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the podcast. It's going viral, it's spreading like wildfire, and it's driving people mad. It's the How to Survive podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Joe. Hello.
And this week we are talking about the 2002 Danny Boyle film 28 Days Later. So as always, we'll be discussing how we'd survive if we found ourselves in the scenarios in the film, and we'll be talking about some key scenes and things that we like and don't like about the film. But first, let's just recap the plot. Obviously, as always, we're just going to be going straight in. There's no worrying about spoilers or anything like that, so if you haven't seen 28 Days Later, go away, watch it, and come back.
There's even a link on our website, howtosurviveshow.com, where you can buy it from Amazon.
Yeah, it'll probably be like £1.
Yeah.
It's a very good film.
Yeah, it's very good.
28 Days Later. So the film opens with a bunch of animal rights activists breaking some chimpanzees out of a research laboratory. David Schneider is there, who we probably best know as sort of a comedian who's been in things like Brass Eye and Day to Day, but he's the scientist. Despite his passionate warnings, they release the chimps that have been infected with rage.
With pure rage.
The chimps are insanely violent. They attack the activists. The activists get back up and attack each other, and it all kicks off. Then we cut.
And that's the end of the film.
That's the end of the film. No, it's not, of course it's not. 28 days later, the chimps have become super intelligent, and they've created... No, that's a different film. Okay. 28 days later, Jim, Cillian Murphy...
Is that his name? 28 Days Later, Jim.
28 Days Later, Jim. Yeah. Jim, in the film 28 Days Later, played by the actor Cillian Murphy, wakes up in hospital having been in a coma. He's a bicycle courier, was a bicycle courier, and had obviously been in some sort of accident. And he wakes up, he's had brain surgery, he's obviously been in a coma for at least 28 days, probably longer. And he finds that he's been locked inside his room, basically. So he finds himself alone in the hospital and emerges out into a deserted London, wandering around. There's not a person in sight. He finds newspaper clippings and things that say there's quarantine, evacuation, all these sorts of things, but he doesn't quite know what's been going on. He eventually goes to a church where he encounters a few people who have been infected with the rage virus, who chase him. He manages to get away with the help of Selena and Mark. Selena is played by Naomi Harris and Mark is played by Noah Huntley. Jim manages to convince them to go back to his parents' house because he's desperate to find out what happened to them. He goes there and finds that they're already dead. They've killed themselves, and they left Jim a note saying, "Don't wake up," which is pretty tough.
Yeah, but he did.
He did, yeah. I bet he wishes he didn't. Yeah. They're attacked at the house, and Mark is bitten. And without a moment's hesitation, Selena kills him with a machete. They then see a tower block later on, which has flashing lights outside. So they go there. They find Frank and Hannah, father and daughter, Brendan Gleeson and Megan Burns. Together they formulate a plan to seek out the source of a radio signal that Frank has found, which are some soldiers claiming to have found the solution to infection. So they drive off in Frank's taxi, have a few close shaves here and there, and eventually get to a military blockade where they were told to go by the radio signal. Unfortunately, when they get there, Frank is infected by a blood drop in the eye, and he's shot and killed by the soldiers who turn up in the nick of time, and they take the rest of the gang to their hideaway in a sort of manor house where they meet Major Henry West, played by Christopher Eccleston. He then reveals that his plan is to basically enslave the women into being gang raped by the soldiers.
He promised it, didn't he?
Yeah, not even like it's not even necessarily to reproduce, is it? It's just he says, men lose hope when there's no women around because what's the point in going on? Because they're all eventually going to die out. Yeah, but that's not what they're after, is it?
It's just. I mean, you get some of those soldiers who are very, very sinister.
Yeah. It's pretty horrible.
Yeah.
And because I don't think it's specified how old Hannah is.
No,
but
she's not.
However old she is,
grown woman,
she's old enough for them.
Yeah.
It seems. Jim obviously doesn't want this to happen, but they basically take him away to be executed. He manages to get away and then gets back to the house and runs riot, basically. Murders the soldiers one by one. He releases Mailer, a soldier who got infected, who they've managed to keep captive. And between them, they basically tear around the house and murder the rest of the soldiers and rescue... I should say they're not as a team. Jim releases him as a sort of wild card. But he manages to link up back with Selena and Hannah and try and escape in a taxi. But Jim gets shot by Major Henry.
Yeah, he's hiding in the taxi.
Yeah, but quick thinking from Hannah means Mailer gets his hands on Henry and they manage to escape and they manage to save Jim's life. And then the final scene is they're in the what appears to be the Peak District or somewhere similar, a rural environment. And they've made a giant sign to go on the ground.
It says hello.
It says hello. And it's spotted by a Finnish fighter jet that's flying overhead. And the final shot of the film is Jim's smiling face, suggesting that it's all going to be all right.
Yeah.
28 days later. Joe, what did you think?
I really liked it. I think it's probably one of my favourite horror films. It's not without its flaws, but what film isn't, I'd say. In terms of British films and British horror, I think it's probably the best.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the great British horror films. Yeah. Like you put it up there with like The Descent and like classics like that. Certainly, yeah. I mean, you could argue that it's in its own way it's as influential as Dawn of the Dead, which we were just talking about last week. I mean,
it's very iconic. The opening scenes of him sort of wandering around London, those are some of the best cinematic sequences you could ever hope to find.
Yeah,
just because I think the lengths that Danny Boyle went to film them is just astounding.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that scene in particular in more detail in a bit. But yeah, it's all done in camera.
Yeah.
There's no CGI trickery, which is really impressive. But, like if you look at think of how many post-apocalyptic films have had running, feral zombie-type creatures. I mean, obviously they're not zombies in this. They are still alive.
Yeah, they're infected people.
Yeah, you don't have to bash their head in or anything. Yeah. You can shoot them and they'll die like humans would. They're just feral with rage. They're rabid, basically.
You can call it a zombie film because they are zombie-like in the fact that they don't have control over themselves.
Yeah.
But they're not eat my brain.
No, they're not the shuffling hordes that you associate most with zombies. But you look at the other films like the Dawn of the Dead remake probably takes as much from 28 Days Later as it does from the original Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, exactly.
The Walking Dead, the TV franchise, the main character wakes up in a hospital where he's been locked in his hospital room.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's based on the graphic novel, which had the same opening. So that's probably a major influence.
And it's a very good way to plant you in the story and with the protagonist.
Yeah, exactly, because you know as much as him.
You learn with him.
Yeah. World War Z, which was an adaptation of the Max Brooks novel. In the novel, the zombies are the shuffling hordes, and the film made them into the ridiculous CGI leaping monsters. Yeah. And similarly, I Am Legend has a similar sort of sprinting feral beast.
They're not zombies, they're vampires.
They're vampires, yeah. But, it's clearly, I think, even if, you can pick and choose about the monsters and things, but I think the style and, the threat, I think, in the same way that everyone knows sort of about zombies, there are little tropes that you've got to smash their head in, they're dangerous as a crowd and all that sort of thing. The fast running feral monster has become a similar thing as well.
Yeah,
and I think this
probably
is and this is patient zero of that particular infection.
Yes.
It's a very cold, bleak, brutal film.
Uncomfortable watching. Yeah. I mean, from start to finish, it even opens on those sort of riot videos and wars and people being executed and things like that, and it's just unsettling from the start right up to the end. Is quite a cheery ending, but everything that happens is like, oh no. Yeah, that's obviously the videos at the start are showing riots and things, and that's of an obvious influence, the sort of collapse of society in that sense, hyper violence and all that sort of thing. The representation of rage as well.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting version of a virus, that's making people really angry. People get angry about a lot of things, like road rage and all that sort of thing. It's like taking that to its, turning that up to its maximum.
Yeah, so you have absolutely no control over yourself. Yeah.
And it's almost like the way that it's shot as well, to get a bit technical. The cinematographer is Anthony Dodd Mantell, and they made the decision, Danny Boyle and Mantell, to shoot on digital because it gives a really sort of grainy, immediate sort of look. Because obviously film and cinematic, 35 millimeter has a certain look to it that's a little bit softer and nicer looking, whereas digital is a bit harsher, and it sort of makes you think of documentaries and news reports and things like that. And so, like, especially if you look at the London scene, it's really like cold, grainy almost images that you're watching. But yeah, it's a really interesting decision, and I think it's also really interesting that the ending is so nice because it is a really hopeful ending.
There is an alternative ending.
Yeah, well, there's several.
Yeah. Have you seen them all?
I have at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are on the DVD.
Yeah.
So because there's the one where it's basically the same ending, but Jim's not there.
Yeah.
So he's dead from his gunshot wound. There's one where the last scene takes place in a hospital where they try to save Jim and can't, and the two of them walk out through the doors, to an uncertain future. But yeah, I think the ending that they picked is the best one, really.
I agree. I really like the soundtrack as well. That kind of, it's Godspeed You Black Emperor when he's walking around London, wasn't it? Which I'm not a fan of anyway. But it really, that sort of growing dread and that growing sense
it fits the music perfectly. Like you wouldn't imagine that it. If someone told you that it was score that someone had written for it, you wouldn't. You'd believe them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like that. The product placement was insane. Like it felt like Selina's character was simply there, just because then confectionery and stuff. They were in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And she's like, if I ever see a chocolate bar again, it'll be too soon.
Yeah.
But I've always got time for a Terry's chocolate orange.
Yeah.
Then she's like, oh, do you want, can I have a drink?
Yeah.
Do you want Lilt or Pepsi?
Yeah.
Do you have any Tango? Yes, I have Tango.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough.
That was a bit jarring. That took me out of the...
I think that's ungenerous to say, but how much would they... I can't say it drew me out of the film, personally.
I think it's because when he's in the first scene in the hospital, there's a Costa coffee. And I was like, I'm not doing it this early on. and I was like, I kind of tuned into it from then.
Yeah.
But speaking of bad things, I've got one more bad thing, and I promise I'll leave it.
Yeah.
The girl, Hannah, she was the worst actress I've ever seen in a film.
She's not good, no. She I don't think she's been in anything since.
No.
And
rightly so.
She's now in a like a goth punk band, I think.
Really?
But I think she's bad throughout. She for some reason has like a weird accent that her dad doesn't have.
I'm like, Dad.
It's like a weird sort of a little bit Cockney, but it doesn't really. It's a little bit northern as well. Like sort of really strange.
Dad, are we gonna drive a car?
Yeah. But like, there's the scene where she gets stoned as well.
Yeah.
And that's even worse. Like it goes down. It gets worse from that point. It's bizarre. Yeah. But overall, Joe, you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a great film. So let's talk about a few of the sort of key moments from the film. Like we mentioned it earlier, but the deserted London sequences are like truly iconic.
Yeah, they're astoundingly good.
You think there's probably very few like really iconic British horror films, but that certainly is one. And like to see it, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like the story of how they shot it is amazing. Like they would close giant sections of road off at just before rush hour. In London, and they'd have a combination of commuters and people like coming home from clubs, trying to go down certain roads and not enjoy. These are main roads. Like there's
it's literally Westminster
Bridge, Piccadilly Circus, like all these sorts of places. They're like hubs for people in London.
I wonder whether, 13 years on, whether you'd even be able to do it.
Yeah,
just because I think the population's grown so much in London that
might well
it'd be unthinkable.
Yeah. But the way that they did it supposedly, is that they knew that people would not be happy, so they basically just got really attractive women to man the roadblocks,
really,
including Danny Boyle's own daughter.
But he made that selection himself.
I don't know whether he said my daughter's really
my daughter's really attractive.
You know, yeah, but you know they did that, and apparently they diffused the situation.
There you go.
10 times out of 10. So yeah, but it's I think it's like I think it's probably an unbeaten portrayal of a post-apocalyptic scenario in a real life city. Like I can't think of one that's better.
No, I mean, you compare it with I Am Legend, which is just comic book. Not even that, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
It's garish.
Yeah.
And like this would never happen. You're driving around a Lamborghini, isn't it?
Yeah,
or something like that.
Well, it's like a bit sort of what would you do in a fantasy.
Whereas this is like raw.
It's like harrowing, like whether he sees the missing persons board and all that sort of thing. And obviously they shot this in 2002. Well, it was released in 2002, sorry. So it was shot in 2001.
Yeah,
during
some scenes were shot during 9/11.
Yeah, so it's uncomfortable realism to it. But like there is an uncomfortable realism to the whole film.
Yeah.
And it's not often that you get a horror film which is about something as major as like a massive epidemic.
Yeah.
And it has like such a grounded tone all the way through. And that's something that's like I think contributes really, massively to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another scene which I think is really iconic and very well done is the tunnel scene, where they're driving the taxi. They're going to go to Manchester. Why they take the tunnel is
he comes to
it's the quickest. It's the quickest way. He says.
But then he drives over other cars, I think.
Yeah.
And what the fuck was he thinking?
It's a rash decision. Frank is actually shown a couple of times to be sort of like emotional and
but there's no reason for that. That's not like an emotional decision. He's just an idiot.
Yeah, it's a like it's a if we can't go round it, let's go over it, through it, sort of thing.
Yeah, but what did he expect? I think it's well done. I mean, what happens afterwards when it's tense.
Well, that's what I wanted to say. Like it's really intense, and it's a good example, I think, of why. Like the rage monsters, the people who are infected, they've become such a influential like monster. It's because like having them just running creates this like ticking clock of tension in a way that having like because when it's a wall of zombies or like a horde of zombies, then it's the fear is of being overrun. Yeah. Whereas this is like. They're coming and they're coming now.
Yeah. Like we have to do something.
Yeah, you have to. And like, what I would say, Joe, this is related to survival. Do you know how to change a tyre?
No.
This
12-year-old girl does.
Yeah. Well, I assume as well that she knew that beforehand because her dad is a taxi driver.
But I don't think that's a good enough reason.
Do you not?
No, because. By that rationale, if I was to go in the street and find the daughter of a taxi driver, she would be able to change a tyre.
My girlfriend is the daughter of a mechanic and she can change a tyre.
That's a mechanic though, not a taxi driver.
Yeah, but a taxi driver surely would be able to change a tyre. And they work with cars all their lives.
Maybe, but...
But I thought, what my point is...
Can you change a tyre?
No, I can't. No. My point is that we'd both be inept.
We'd be dead.
Yeah. I watched this with my flatmates, and they said, "Oh, you can drive on a burst tyre."
You can,
yeah. I don't think you could drive at 30 miles an hour or for very long
in a straight line.
Or like go round corners while being chased. But So an early survival tip for this episode. Fucking learn how to change a tyre.
Learn the basics of vehicles.
We should challenge ourselves to learn how to. We should live by the rules that we set. Yeah. And learn how to change tyres.
Yeah.
And the third scene that I want to talk about is the blockade. When they get to blockade after they've heard the radio signal, they arrive and they're looking around, and Frank is frustrated, angry, and he like kicks a fence or wall. And on top of it, there's a crow, and he's been like. Trying to shoot it because he's angry, and a drop of blood from an eye that the crow is holding in its beak falls in his eye and that's it. And I think that for me is the scene that always stays with me when I watch this film. Yeah, because it's so horrific. Yeah, and it's not horrific in like you don't need like there are moments of real violence in the film, like you know when Selena kills Mark, and she like hacks through his arm to kill him.
When Jim puts his thumbs through someone's eyes.
Yeah, the soldier at the end. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of very violent moments in the film. It's a very visceral film, but for some reason, this is the bit that I find most distressing. Yeah, because it's just so. There's something about him instantly knowing
something's up.
It's done. There's nothing that he can do immediately. Like it goes in his eye, and it's like there's a couple of seconds, and then he realises it's game over, and there's nothing that he can do, and all he can do is just say,
"I love you, get away from me."
Yeah, get away from it, and then he starts. And you don't see anyone. Well, you see people transforming. You see people transforming in the introduction. Yeah. But it's mainly off camera and sort of like done in an impressionistic way. Whereas this is literally
the transformation.
You're confronted with the horror of it, and you can't look away. Mm-hmm. And also, you're emotionally invested in the character, his relation to other characters, and all that sort of thing. And it's really like. It's just awful. It's just so quick. Yeah. And so.
And then Jim's got to make that decision of should he kill him or not.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, and it's just like everything goes wrong in the space of 30 seconds. Yeah, it's horrible, and you know it also ramps up the tension for the rest of the film because you know it is literally simple, like as simple as a drop of blood.
Exactly.
And you can't hack off a limb or I mean you can't cut out an eye. You can't do anything to stop it once it's in you.
Yeah, it is. It does make it a lot more threatening. I have one question about the blockade. Mm-hmm. Why didn't the army just stand up earlier? Because I get the impression that they were there all along, just like letting it all play out, and then they'd pop up and go freeze.
I don't know would they be there. I guess I always assumed that they had some sort of way of letting them know when people arrive, but I guess not because it's like a car drive away. Yeah. So
you see them arrive, or because they do pop out the bushes, don't they? And they shoot him.
I wonder if it's. They given their motives for capturing.
Where they're trying to get rid of the blokes.
Yeah.
You said the scene that sticks with you is that scene. Mm-hmm. For me, the scene that I always dread is the one in Jim's parents' house. But pretty much the whole thing in Jim's parents' house. He goes there and he finds their dead bodies, and that's very sad. And then you have the scene downstairs where he has that cinecam sort of thing, and it's like a home video and he's trying to interacting with them.
Yeah, it's like a dream sequence or like fantasy sequence.
Yeah, isn't it? That's really clever because he's in the home movie. Yeah, even though he's just in the room. Yeah, and then something happens which doesn't make any sense to me. Someone bursts through the window, fine, but a zombie. We'll call them zombies. Yeah, a zombie also comes through the skylight. Yeah, suggesting that they are able to somehow plan. And manoeuvre themselves into a position of surprise and suspense.
I suppose so. Like it could be more simple than that. Like they're there on the roof or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, I know it's a little bit jarring.
Yeah. Why would they be on the roof?
I don't know. I agree with you. It's jarring. Yeah. But I do like again talking about how quickly things go wrong. Like there's a shot which is like the point of view shot of the infected guy in the garden. Yeah. And he sort of like it just snaps round. And looks at there's just like a tiny bit of light coming through the curtains, and like it's that quick. And the film, there's a piece of music. All the soundtrack's done by John Murphy. Mm-hmm. There's a piece of music called "In the House in a Heartbeat," which is the famous. It's been in loads of adverts. It's the sort of cascading, growing. Like
let's drop it in.
I'll play it.
Yeah.
I think that's for some reason is the scene that I always associate it with, even though it actually plays when he's murdering the people in the manor house.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's that's what I associate it with. Yeah. And it is that sort of it only takes like a heartbeat to
be in there and everything changes.
Yeah.
That's every sort of part of the film that changes the direction of the plot does happen in like 1 second. It's just a non-stop. You get like lulls where it goes. It's a bit Children of Men. Do you know what I mean by that? Where it's kind of
they're travelling.
It's like a drama class. That's always think Children of Men is. It's like a play. you get those parts where it's like a play. It's very intimate.
Yeah.
And they're just chatting and a bit of exposition, and then you get this insane set piece where it's just ramped up, or someone will break through the window. I mean, Children of Men, you get the scene where they're driving the car along, and so out of nowhere the car rolls in and they get attacked. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing as this. It's like the action can come from nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I wanted to talk about the blockade scene as well, because I think that's the point at which the film slightly loses its way.
Okay.
Like after that, I think because I don't enjoy the manor scenes and the soldiers stuff as much. I mean, obviously enjoy is perhaps not the right word anyway, but the sort of how unpleasant the rape implications and things like that are sort of affects it for me as well. And also, I think the Jim going feral, like I understand that it's sort of like aligning him with the infected people to some extent. Like he has to become full of rage and feral to kill all the people off.
This is the exact same situation we had with The Hills of Ice, in that it's the problematic thing of the sexual violence and the fact that the goodies have to turn into the baddies.
Yeah.
So same thing. But I do take your point. I think the stuff in the manor, it goes on a bit. Like the film's got a good pacing up to then, and then it's like, oh, you kind of think it's going to end when they get there, or there'll be like a bit of a twist, but then you've got another half an hour. Yeah,
it sort of changes gears in a way that I think it's not even that I think it's bad or anything. I just think that it changes gears to something that's not up to the standard of the first 2/3 of the film.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess is a criticism, but it's difficult to criticise it too much for not living up to such an excellent first portion of the film.
Like you've shut down London, literally shut down London for the beginning of the film.
Yeah, so, and it is really well done. I think, though there is a comparison with The Hills of Ice, the portrayal of the female characters is totally different.
I'm not really saying it's like The Hills of Ice.
Because Selena, is like a force of nature.
Yeah.
So Joe, what do we know about the rage virus and the monsters in the film?
It spreads via liquids, body fluids. It makes you a zombie in the sense of you don't have control over your own direction, what you're going to do next. But it does make you fast and ferocious.
It doesn't give you any supernatural capabilities though. It's
you can't jump over a house.
Yeah, and as we see in the ending, the infected have begun to starve as well, so they do actually need to still sustain themselves somehow.
That's kind of the point, isn't it? It's not it doesn't transform you into something else.
No.
But it does make you psychologically very different.
Yeah. And it's again as well, they're not actually eating. Although there's biting, they don't actually eat people. They don't do that in a way that sustains them. It's just violent attacking, like violent assault.
So you think once you've got it, you're going to attack everything, and eventually you're going to die of starvation?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
The rage virus, in the rage virus in the context of the film, is we get little things from the intro, little hints, but it was something that was supposed to suppress anger, for anger management purposes.
Okay. But it actually does the exact opposite.
Yeah, but it uses a strain of Ebola as its delivery system because it's contagious. But you were laughing there about sort of the result being the exact opposite of what they were trying to achieve. But that's not actually that far-fetched. For example, a group of scientists in the sort of, I think, early 1900s. I may have that year wrong. Yeah. Apologies if so.
If you're a student of historical medicine, do email in with a correction to howtosurviveshow@gmail.com.
Yeah, please do. A group of scientists and doctors tried to create a version of morphine that would be non-addictive to for pain relief purposes and for a cough medicine. Do you know what they made? Heroin.
Really?
So in fact, the whole notion of a scientist making something that's like the total opposite of what they set out to do isn't that far-fetched.
It does happen, and particularly in medicine, I imagine there's a lot of trial and error.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's, as you can probably tell from the scientist character's sort of fear at the things being unleashed, I think it was very much a work in progress. Yeah, but the victims turn in sort of less than 60 seconds. It seems like it's very, very quick, as we see from the blockade scene. And they become. It's quite like rabies. Like in terms of producing saliva and the feral, making you feral.
Yeah, but you also it's like hemorrhagic, I guess, because you puke up gallons of blood at a time.
Yeah, and also which is Ebola. Which makes sense within the context. And the blood and saliva that you then expunge is infectious.
So pretty much all the diseases you don't want, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, a single drop of it can turn you into like a violent, insane, bloodthirsty rage
person.
Yeah.
Well, so you don't really want it.
No. With that in mind, Joe.
Yeah.
Have you got any ideas of how to survive?
Yeah, I do. I have several, actually. And I'll start with this one. Very simple. And it's something we see the characters in the film do, then they stop doing it. Now, I'm a stickler for safety. I mean, call me crazy, but if there's a genuine risk that getting blood in my eyes or mouth will give me a disease, cover your eyes and mouth. All right? Yeah. And Selena knows this all too well, because when we first meet her, she's wearing a gas mask, or a ski mask at least, with a mouth covering. And every shop in the world is amply supplied. No one's been looting. So just wander down to Covent Garden, go in one of the many...
Millets or somewhere like that.
Yeah, exactly, one of the many climbing shops, get a face mask. Yeah. And maybe even get a wetsuit as well while you're there.
Yeah.
And gloves.
True. Yeah.
And a snorkel. So there's no way it can get into you.
What if an infected person was sick into the opening of your snorkel?
Well, scuba gear. Walk around with a... don't even breathe the air.
Flippers as well.
Yeah. Okay. So my first way to survive is simply to block passage into my airways. Okay,
but the violent rage exhibited by the infected people.
Well, I'll carry a baseball bat. So.
Okay, so you're in a neoprene wetsuit carrying a baseball bat, wearing flippers and gas tank.
But the flippers was your idea.
Well, you wanted the complete diving gear. So it's not going to prevent you from being beaten to death, is it?
No, but
then little can, I suppose.
Well, Molotov cocktails. I mean, basically do what she was doing at the beginning.
Yeah. Run and gun.
Yeah.
Well, similarly, my first method of survival would be to never take the riot suit that Frank has off ever. He does. Like you see him, he wears it when he's playing interference, basically, stopping people getting up the stairs. You don't see him wearing it afterwards. No. If I was him, I would, they arrive at this blockade and there's no one around and they're a bit nervous. I would don the riot suit while everyone else waits in the car.
Then
wander go around like a tanked up, man with a truncheon and stuff, and beat anyone senseless who I find. Yep. It might even stop the bullets if the soldiers tried to shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd be in a much better situation.
And it had a plastic visor as well, didn't it? So
exactly.
There's no way he'd have...
No blood in the eye. Yeah. And on a similar note, boiler suits, surgical scrubs, even a onesie would help in terms of the efflua.
Overall protection.
Yeah, and I'd also suggest any clothes you have, coat them all in an aquaphobic spray. So because you can get those things, you see the white trainers and they pour black paint on it and it all just runs off.
But was that available in 2002? 2002?
Well, no. But no, that's fair enough.
Yeah. But I mean, everything else you've said did exist.
Yeah, but as I said, as we, the rub with both of our ideas is that it's not going to protect you from being bludgeoned to death. No,
exactly. If someone ran at you and bit you in the throat or something.
Yeah.
Well, one way, I mean, I don't really have a way to defend against someone running at you, but I can prevent the risk. So it does seem kind of stupid to stay in London. I live in London, you live in London, and one thing I'm sure we can agree on is that you can't really walk around anywhere without seeing someone.
Yeah. It's difficult.
Yeah. I take the point at the beginning the roads were deserted, but 8.5 million people currently live in London.
And it's not just London.
No.
It's the UK.
But good point.
England, at least.
Good point, and here's more on that. he mentions that his parents live in Deptford, which is where they go.
Yeah, which is southeast London.
Southeast, yeah. So if you're looking at, Deptford crosses 2 boroughs, Lewisham and Greenwich. So if you were in the Lewisham side of Deptford, you're looking at 8,341 people per square kilometre.
Okay.
Whereas if you go to the Greenwich side, it's 5,717 people per square kilometre, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which explains why there's literally people falling through skylights.
Pouring off roofs.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a matter of. He probably lives on the roof.
Yeah.
That's the thing, basically.
Afford to rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I suggest taking that taxi to Eden in Cumbria, with a population density of 25 people per square kilometre.
Okay.
Or second, Rydale in North Yorkshire, with 35 people per square kilometre.
Well, it's interesting because they do end up in a sort of, like we said, it looks like it's some sort of hilly or mountainous region.
Yeah, with a low population density.
Yeah. So that appears to be advice that they've taken on board.
Yes.
I don't know if you haven't seen, I think, 28 Weeks Later.
No, exactly. Is that set in Eden in Cumbria?
Yeah, it is exclusively.
Yeah.
No, it's so the film doesn't have any characters carrying over.
Right. Yeah.
But the opening to that film is very intense and features. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's literally the opening 5 minutes is people who are holed up in a sort of rural cottage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happens to them?
So it's not flawless.
No, but it's you have better chance basically, and also you see the rage infected people dying of starvation on the roads, and there's like 2 of them on this little stretch of road. I just like the idea of them. Maybe they've driven past in the taxi like 2 weeks ago, and they're just like crawling along.
Right. They're chasing them.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Incidentally, if you don't want to drive to the furthest county in England away from London, the closest you'll find with a low population density is Uttlesford in Essex, which is 131 per square kilometre.
Yes.
And if you were to go to our hometown, it's 1,541 people per square kilometre in Fareham. Yeah.
That's it's okay. It's better than London, but
not as good as
not what you'd want.
Uttlesford.
No. As an alternative to that survival idea I had, stay in the flat and starve the infected out.
Yeah.
It's not a foolproof plan. We've seen that there's been problems with him collecting rainwater and stuff.
Right.
But when there's 4 of them, Selena and Jim, to some extent, are experienced in sort of the running and rioting, looting stuff to get supplies and all that sort of thing. It's not inconceivable that Hannah and Frank could stay in the flat.
Yeah, and they could all go get.
Yeah.
That does seem a bit. I suppose that would be a sort of rent thing, wouldn't it? You can stay in our flat as long as you give us food.
Yeah.
And it's a good point. Why don't they go to the supermarket, which they do, fill up on stuff, which they do, and go back?
Well, I think
because they have a plan, but
I think because originally Frank's worry is that the reason that he hasn't left the flat is because he doesn't want to go out and not come back and have Hannah left on her own.
Yeah.
But I guess that's less likely, or if he's not even the one going out, if it's Jim and Selena, then it's different. But there's still the danger that it's you get the sense that it's not going to last forever, is it?
It's not.
It's not a foolproof plan.
Even when they got there, it seemed a bit cagey.
Yeah, cagey with the shopping trolleys. Yeah. Is Frank a police officer or a taxi driver?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Riot police gear isn't freely available.
No, not for taxi drivers.
No.
It's not a standard issue.
No, and taxi cabs aren't standard issue
for policemen.
Yeah.
And you think if they stole the police, you'd think if they stole the taxi, steal a van.
So I wonder if, do you think it's more likely, because what makes me think that he's a taxi driver is obviously the taxi, but also when they're about to go through the tunnel, he's like, this is the quickest route under the river.
But he'd know that he's a policeman as well.
But that's true. But I think the way he says it with a measure of authority suggests that he's got the knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas, which the knowledge is, for anyone who doesn't live in London or know what the knowledge is, it's the test that taxi drivers will have to take that they know the routes around London, off the back of their hand. Off the back of their hand, like the back of their hand.
Yeah. It's all written on the back of their hand.
Yeah. So
they're massive hands.
Yeah, non-bread hands. Yeah. So they, but do you think it's more likely, because the problem is as well, that riot police don't take their gear home with them.
No, they don't.
So I was going to say, even if it's his neighbour who's a riot policeman, he's not going to have it in his house, is he? So do you think Frank is into cosplaying?
Cosplay? What is Robocop?
Yeah, or like, a riot policeman. I don't know.
I think cosplaying, you have to be somewhere specific, do you?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know anything about cosplaying, Bruce.
Like some sort of urban laughing.
Laughing, man.
Yeah, unless he's some sort of like PCSO, but then he still wouldn't have the armour.
No, exactly.
So I reckon he's maybe.
Well, how about this? Maybe he was involved in the sort of poll tax riots, beat up a policeman, stole his policeman's like riot gear, and he's had it since the late 80s.
Maybe, or he's a police officer whose neighbour is a taxi driver who keeps their taxi in the car park underneath the flat.
Yeah, or vice versa. But no, he wouldn't have it at home, would he?
Who?
You wouldn't have you wouldn't. There's no real reason. I think the point we're making is there's no reason in any case for Frank to have that gear.
Yeah, unless he was a riot police officer.
No, even then he shouldn't have it at home.
He doesn't strike you as a police officer.
No, he doesn't. One last How to Survive from me, and this is what's the guy called who dies at the beginning?
Mark.
This is based on Mark's testimony about. I mean, he could have survived very easily by heeding my advice now. Now, don't go to Paddington Station in order to catch a plane. Yeah. There's no amount of money is going to get you on one. Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking? It's like, we tried to get the plane. Everyone had gone there to get the plane.
Like, mad people in London. No wonder there were scenes of confusion and violence. I mean, it's bad enough in Paddington Station anyway. Yeah. Imagine 10,000 people trying to get a plane. I mean,
for anyone listening abroad, Paddington Station is a train station.
Yeah.
And there aren't any planes at Paddington Station. The nearest thing is Heathrow. Yeah. Which is about 15 miles away.
There is, however, the Heathrow Express from Paddington.
There is, yeah. I looked up whether that was open at the time, and it was. So it's theoretically they could have been getting the Heathrow Express to Heathrow from Paddington. Yeah. But he doesn't say that. He says we went to Paddington to get a plane. Yeah. And I don't think you could. Well,
I've got a final How to Survive. And I think this is pretty foolproof. I think this is cut and dry, to be honest. We were discussing what we knew about the virus. Makes people, it's called rage. Maybe it's like an adrenal gland thing, it just floods their system and they go mad. They're full of anger and hate. So play some relaxing music really loud.
Yeah, that would calm them down.
So I'm thinking some Enya.
Yeah.
Some 07 maybe.
Friend of the show, Enya.
Yeah, so any sort of, really chilled, relaxing music.
Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's a bit intense. There's a build-up.
Yeah, you crescendos, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas, things like Enya, Orinoco Flow, it's there's a beat to it, but it's quite sort of pleasant. And then she's got sort of more relaxing things. 07 is very sort of acid jazz. It's almost like waiting room music.
Yeah. Well, Brian Eno, an ending that plays in the film. Yeah. And I don't know if it's diegetic or not, but it doesn't help them.
Any sort of chill out music, you can get those sort of double CDs, the best chill out songs ever, and maybe combine that with some incense, some of those room diffusers, and maybe some mood lighting.
Sure.
Like soft, gentle lighting, and have you ever had a massage?
I had a massage.
Sort of whale song, and the sort of.
Actually, I went. True story. I went for a massage, and they were playing Enya. Right. And this is when I was going through and listeners to the show will know I'm a big Enya fan.
Yeah. If you go back to episode 10, Titanic.
My interest in Enya peaked around this sort of time. I went for a massage, and by coincidence, Enya was playing. I was loving it.
Were you relaxed?
I was very relaxed.
Were you not relaxed beforehand?
I wasn't in a state of what I'd call rage.
You weren't feral and spitting, vomiting blood in the faces of other people.
No, not quite, but I did come out more relaxed. So
okay, yeah. Well, I think the plan would work. I think it's because if you boil it down to the root problem, it's rage. It's called rage. The clue's in the name.
Yeah.
So if you diffuse that, then
right. So maybe encourage mindfulness even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Get them to sit down, just
talk through their problems, maybe.
Yeah.
You know.
So what is it that's making you...
I had one final thought,
Go on.
which I'll leave you with. So at the end of the film, you see them up in the hills, and they're creating a giant sign out of fabric to attract attention from passing planes, and they spell out hello. Yeah. Why don't they spell out help?
Yeah. Or
much less fabric. They wouldn't have had to like tear down the curtains.
Alive.
Jim says SOS even. Yeah. It's even fewer. Yeah. And it's a more internationally recognised sign.
Hello. When the guy flew past, didn't know what hello meant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I thought it meant like...
Don't come here.
Please. Yeah. Hello.
Bomb us.
Hello in Finnish is like run away, never come back.
And they're waving their arms like that's the international sign of
get infection, get away. Yeah. Hello. We've got this is fighter jet 3. We've got some people infected down on the ground here. Send through the cleanup crew. Carpet bomb like a whole swathe of area in the Lake District.
We found some more people saying hello. Oh God, not more of them.
Oh dear. Yeah. So that was 28 Days Later, Joe. I really enjoyed the film.
I loved it, yeah, and I'll stand by that.
So if you've got any thoughts, if you think that you'd have better ideas of how to survive, or if you'd like to email suggestions about our next films we'll be covering.
Jaws and Backcountry. Yeah. That's Jaws, the classic Spielberg film about the shark, and Backcountry, which has been described as Jaws in the woods. How a shark survives in the woods, we'll never know. Until we watch it, of course. So if you have any thoughts for those films, then email in at howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. Yep. Also visit the website, howtosurviveshow.com. Where you'll find a back catalogue of all our past episodes, as well as other goodies, such as further reading and links to buy all the films on Amazon. And if you loved the show, remember, it's How to Survive on iTunes, and it's 5 stars. Whereas if you didn't like it, it's 1 star, and it's called the Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo Film Review Show. Yeah. And be sure to... Yeah, so make sure you leave a review, subscribe and everything, and we'll see you back here next week for a creme de menthe. Yep.